Imagine pitching this to Series 2 executives. It's a psychological horror series about a Beyoncé stan who goes on an unaliving spree. Except we're gonna blur the line between fiction and reality so hard that viewers won't know where one ends and the other begins. Oh, and we're casting Malia Obama as a writer. They'd probably think you were trolling, right? But Donald Glover and Janine Nabers actually did it. And the result was Swarm, one of the most audacious, unsettling, and culturally provocative series of 2023. This wasn't just another streaming show trying to capitalize on true crime trends. It was a funhouse mirror held up to stan culture, parasocial relationships, and our collective online madness. From day one, Swarm announced itself as something different, opening with a title card claiming it's not a work of fiction. While clearly being fiction, the show sparked fierce debates, earned Emmy nominations, and made Dominique Fishback a household name. But the stories behind its creation? They're just as wild as anything Dre did on screen. Fact number 1. From the very first frame, Swarm plays with your head in the most deliberate way possible. The show presents itself as not a work of fiction and explicitly states that any similarity to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is intentional. That's not your standard legal disclaimer. That's a declaration of war on the boundary between reality and fiction. Co-creator Janine Nabers revealed that many plot points throughout the series are directly inspired by real-life internet rumors, tragic events, and pop culture incidents that occurred between 2016 and 2018. This was a specific window in time when social media was reaching peak toxicity, when stan culture was becoming increasingly aggressive, when the line between fandom and obsession was being tested daily on Twitter. By framing the show this way, Glover and Nabers immediately put viewers in an uncomfortable position. You're watching fiction, but you're being told it's real. You know Dre isn't a real person, but the behavior she exhibits, those are absolutely real. The violence might be heightened for drama, but the psychology behind it, the parasocial relationships, the need to defend your favorite artist at all costs, the way online interactions can spiral into real-world consequences. That's all pulled from actual events and documented patterns of behavior. It's a brilliant trick that makes every scene feel more disturbing because you're constantly wondering, did this actually happen to someone? Fact number 2. The central mystery that drives Dre's descent into violence, the death of her sister, Marissa Jackson, is based on a debunked internet rumor that circulated after Beyoncé released Lemonade in 2016. According to this false story, a devoted Beyoncé fan had taken their own life after the album drop, allegedly because the album's themes of betrayal and heartbreak were too overwhelming. The rumor originated from a satirical news site, but like so many internet hoaxes, it spread rapidly before anyone could verify the facts. People shared it, believed it, mourned a person who never existed. It became one of those weird internet moments where collective belief almost creates reality. Millions of people discussing and reacting to something that never happened. Glover and Nabers took that eerie, unsettling rumor and built their entire show around it. Marissa's death by her own hand becomes the inciting incident for everything Dre does afterward. It's the trauma that breaks whatever fragile psychological balance Dre was maintaining. And by rooting this in a real internet phenomenon, even though the phenomenon itself was fake, the show comments on how online culture creates and spreads narratives that take on lives of their own, regardless of truth. Fact number 3. The bizarre events Dre encounters throughout the series aren't just fever dreams invented by the writers. They're pulled from actual news stories. One of the most chilling examples is the episode titled Honey, which references a real tragedy, a young Black woman named Kenneka Jenkins, who was found dead in a Chicago hotel walk-in freezer in 2017. The circumstances of Jenkins' death sparked conspiracy theories and intense speculation online. How did she end up in that freezer? What really happened at that party? The case became a social media obsession, with amateur detectives combing through security footage and creating elaborate theories about what occurred. It was a horrifying example of how real tragedy becomes content, how grief becomes performance, how death becomes something to be solved by internet sleuths rather than mourned properly. By incorporating this reference into Swarm, Nabers and Glover weren't just being edgy. They were making a point about how easily we consume tragedy, how quickly real people's deaths become stories we tell ourselves. Dre's journey through these events mirrors our own scrolling through news feeds, encountering horror after horror, becoming desensitized to violence because it's presented as entertainment or puzzle to be solved rather than human suffering. Fact number 4. Let's address the elephant in the room. Nija is obviously based on Beyoncé. The show doesn't even try to hide it. Nija releases a surprise visual album, just like Beyoncé's self-titled album in 2013 and Lemonade in 2016. There's an infamous elevator fight involving her sister that directly mirrors the Solange Jay-Z incident from the Met Gala. Nija has twins, just like Beyoncé. There's even a reference to an alleged incident where Beyoncé was bitten at a party, which was a real story that dominated gossip sites for weeks. Nija's fan base, called The Swarm, is a direct parallel to the Bayhive, Beyoncé's notoriously protective and sometimes aggressive fan base. Anyone who's spent time on social media knows the Bayhive's reputation. They will find you if you say something negative about Beyoncé. They will quote tweet you into oblivion. They operate with military precision and zero mercy. Swarm takes that real behavior and asks, what if one of those fans took it to its logical, horrifying extreme? Here's what's fascinating. The show's creators made sure to legally clear all these intentional similarities. They went through proper channels, made sure they weren't opening themselves up to lawsuits, covered their bases. Despite the crystal clear inspiration, Beyoncé herself was not involved in the show's production. She didn't give it her blessing, but she also didn't try to stop it. The series exists in this weird space where everyone knows exactly what it's referencing, but it maintains just enough fictional distance to be its own thing. Fact number 5. One of the most disturbing arcs in the series involves a cult led by a character named Eva, played by Billie Eilish in her acting debut. This cult, which presents itself as a women's empowerment group but is clearly something far more sinister, was directly inspired by the NXIVM cult and its leader, Keith Raniere. NXIVM started as a multi-level marketing company offering executive success programs, but it devolved into a horrifying cult that branded women, coerced them into sexual acts, and operated under the guise of female empowerment while actually being controlled by Raniere. The case dominated headlines when it broke, revealing the disturbing ways charismatic leaders manipulate vulnerable people, especially women seeking community and purpose. Janine Nabers confirmed the parallel in interviews, explaining how they wanted to explore how someone like Dre, already fragile, already searching for belonging, could be drawn into these kinds of organizations. The cult episodes aren't just horror for horror's sake. They're examining how traumatized people become targets for predators who promise family, purpose, and unconditional acceptance. It's one of the show's most effective sequences because it shows how easily Dre's obsessive personality traits could be redirected from one form of worship to another. Fact number 6. The casting choices in Swarm are loaded with meaning beyond just finding good actors. Chlöe Bailey, who plays Dre's sister Marissa, isn't just any singer. She's signed to Beyoncé's management company, Parkwood Entertainment, in real life. So you've got someone who's actually part of Beyoncé's professional orbit, playing the sister of a character who's obsessed with a Beyoncé-inspired pop star. That's meta on top of meta. Bailey brings authenticity to the role because she understands fandom from both sides. She knows what it's like to have fans who love you intensely, and she knows what it's like to be a young artist looking up to Beyoncé as a mentor and inspiration. That dual perspective makes Marissa feel grounded, even as the show spirals into increasingly surreal territory. When Marissa talks about music and its power, Bailey's speaking from genuine experience, not just reading lines. The relationship between Marissa and Dre becomes the emotional core of the entire series. It's the only real human connection Dre has, and when it's gone, there's nothing left to tether her to reality. Bailey and Dominique Fishback only had one day of rehearsal before filming their scenes together, but they immediately clicked, creating a sisterly bond that feels lived in and authentic. That chemistry is crucial because everything that follows Marissa's death hinges on us understanding how devastating that loss is for Dr. Fact Number 7. Billie Eilish makes her acting debut in Swarm as Ava, the cult leader, and it's a genuinely unsettling performance. Eilish was cast partly because she's someone who has her own swarm of devoted fans, someone who understands the intensity of parasocial relationships from personal experience. She knows what it's like to have people project their hopes, fears, and identities onto you. She's lived through the weirdness of being simultaneously worshipped and scrutinized. At the show's premiere, Eilish looked gleeful despite the darkness of her role, and Dominique Fishback later posted on Instagram about being incredibly honored to be Eilish's first scene partner. There's something perfect about a pop star playing a cult leader in a show about pop star worship. The casting itself becomes part of the commentary, blurring that line between performance and reality, between the person and the persona, between healthy admiration and dangerous obsession. Eilish's Eva is charming, seemingly caring, speaks in all the right buzzwords about female empowerment and self-actualization. She's exactly the kind of person who could pull someone like Dre into her orbit. The performance works because Eilish understands the mechanics of that kind of influence, having watched fans create entire identities around her music and image. She's not just playing a cult leader, she's channeling something she's witnessed firsthand about how devotion can curdle into something toxic. Fact number 8. Here's something that made headlines. Malia Obama, former President Barack Obama's daughter, worked on Swarm as a writer on the show's 5th episode. Let that sink in for a second. The daughter of a president, someone who grew up with Secret Service protection and worldwide name recognition, is writing for a show about a serial killer obsessed with a pop star. Janine Nabers talked about wanting to give Malia the opportunity to get her feet wet in television and see if it's something she wanted to continue pursuing. But this wasn't nepotism or a vanity credit. Nabers specifically praised Malia's wild, incredible pitches and described her as a little bit of a Wikipedia page when it comes to movies. Malia is a genuine cinephile with deep knowledge of film history and visual storytelling. The show's entire aesthetic, shot on film, pulling from cinematic influences like The Piano Teacher and Under the Skin, was right in Malia's wheelhouse. Donald Glover and the writing team watched these films together, discussed them, used them as reference points for the psychological horror they were trying to achieve. Having someone with Malia's film knowledge and unique perspective in the room added to the creative energy, and the fact that she chose this project, something dark, weird, and provocative, rather than something safe or conventional, says something about the kind of artist she wants to be. Fact number 9. Donald Glover made a significant choice with Swarm. He did not act in it. This was the first project bearing his name, where he worked exclusively behind the camera as creator, writer, director of the pilot, and executive producer. After 4 seasons of Atlanta, where he starred as Earn, this was Glover stepping back from the spotlight to let someone else shine. That decision was crucial to Swarm's success. If Glover had cast himself in the show, it would have become about him rather than about Dre. The whole project would have shifted. Instead, by staying behind the camera, he could focus on crafting this character study and giving Dominique Fishback the space to create something extraordinary. He directed the pilot episode, establishing the visual language and tone, then handed off subsequent episodes to other directors while maintaining creative oversight. This was also a test for Glover. Could he create something successful without being the face of it? Could his vision and storytelling work without his presence on screen? Swarm proved that yes, absolutely. The show succeeded on its own merits, with Fishback's performance becoming the defining element rather than Glover's celebrity. It showed maturity and confidence as a creator, a willingness to serve the story rather than his own ego. Fact number 10. Here's one of the wildest behind-the-scenes stories. Dominique Fishback was originally approached to play Marissa, the more grounded, emotionally stable sister. Donald Glover called her about the project, and in his mind, she was perfect for that supporting role. Fishback read the script and immediately knew she wanted something different. She fought for the role of Drachi, not with attitude or ultimatums, but with passion and conviction. She told her team to relay to Glover that she was thankful for the offer, but she wanted to play the lead. She wanted the challenge. She wanted the transformation. She referenced Charlize Theron in Monster, Heath Ledger as the Joker, Hilary Swank in Boys Don't Cry, those career-defining performances where actors completely disappeared into disturbing characters. Fishback didn't want to catch up to herself as an actor. She wanted to push beyond what people expected from her, beyond the charming roles she'd played in The Deuce and Judas and The Black Messiah. She wanted to stretch. And here's the remarkable part. Glover gave her the role without making her audition. He simply said, "If that's the role you want, that's the role you get. I know you can do it." That kind of trust and support is rare in Hollywood, especially for Black actresses seeking challenging, complex roles. Fact number 11. Swarm doesn't look like typical television, and that's intentional. With the exception of one mockumentary-style episode, the entire series was shot on film rather than digital. In an era where most streaming shows are shot digitally for cost and convenience, choosing film is a statement. It's expensive. It requires more planning. It limits how many takes you can do, but it creates a specific texture and warmth that digital can't replicate. The show's aesthetic feels more like cinema than TV because Glover and Nabers deliberately pulled from film rather than television as their reference points. They studied Michael Haneke's The Piano Teacher with its uncomfortable exploration of repressed desire and psychological deterioration. They watched Under the Skin, Scarlett Johansson's Alien as Predator film that makes you feel constantly off balance. They referenced these art house psychological thrillers and brought that sensibility to a streaming series about stan culture. Production designer Sarah K. White talked about how much thought went into every visual choice, from the blood splatter patterns to the way locations were protected during filming. This wasn't a show that could be sloppy. Every frame needed to feel intentional. Every shot needed to contribute to the unsettling atmosphere. Shooting on film enforced discipline. You can't just spray and pray with a digital camera when each take costs real money. That discipline shows in the final product. Swarm looks expensive and thoughtful in a way most streaming shows don't. Fact number 12. One episode of Swarm completely breaks from the main narrative and presents itself as a true crime documentary examining Dre's unaliving spree. It's formatted like those Netflix docuseries we've all binged, talking head interviews with experts, dramatic reenactments, the whole package. Except this is a documentary about fictional murders, examining a fictional person, featuring actors playing people, analyzing a character we've been watching for several episodes. This meta approach serves multiple purposes. It comments on our cultural obsession with true crime content, the way we consume real violence as entertainment. It makes you question your own relationship to the show. Are you any different from the fictional experts in the documentary, analyzing Dre's pathology for entertainment value? It also provides an outside perspective on Dre's crimes, showing how others perceive her actions versus how we've experienced them from her distorted point of view. The documentary episode features a character named Detective Loretta Green trying to piece together the common thread in all these murders. She realizes the victims all insulted a superstar with a vicious fan base on social media. It's the show acknowledging its own premise while simultaneously examining it from an objective distance. This kind of formal experimentation is rare in streaming series, which tend to play it safe with consistent formats. Swarm refuses to be predictable or comfortable. Fact number 13. In a viral marketing stunt that perfectly captured the show's blurring of reality and fiction, Amazon set up an actual functional phone number for doctor viewers could text this number and receive responses that seemed to come from the character herself. It wasn't just an automated chatbot. There was genuine interaction, personalized responses, an attempt to make Dre feel like a real person you could communicate with. This kind of immersive marketing has become more common, but it was particularly effective for Swarm because the entire show is about parasocial relationships and the way we feel connected to people we don't actually know. By giving viewers a way to interact with Dre, the marketing became part of the commentary. Are you texting a fictional character, or are you engaging in the same behavior the show is critiquing? Forming a relationship with someone who isn't real? Projecting meaning onto one-sided communication? The phone number added another layer to the show's exploration of how technology enables and intensifies obsessive behavior. In the series, we watch Dre stalk people through social media, track them down, use digital tools to feed her obsession. By giving audiences a phone number to text, the show was essentially saying, "Here, you try it. See how easy it is to cross that line." It was brilliant, unsettling, and perfectly aligned with everything Swarm was trying to say about fandom in the digital age. Fact number 14. Dominique Fishback's preparation for playing Dre was unconventional. She didn't study fandom or go down rabbit holes researching obsessive fan behavior. Instead, she approached the character from a place of love. She recognized that Dre genuinely loves Marissa and Nija. The problem isn't the love itself, but how that love gets twisted and expressed through Dre's damaged psychology. Fishback drew inspiration from physical comedians like Lucille Ball and Jim Carrey. She wanted to find the humor in Dre's awkwardness, the way she moves through the world like she doesn't quite fit in her own skin. There's this scene where Dre picks a strawberry out of a fruit bowl, bites it, finds it bitter, and pushes the whole plate away. Fishback didn't plan that. She just stayed present in the moment, reacted authentically to the taste, and let Dre's character come through in that simple gesture. Glover and Nabers told Fishback that Dre was emotionally stunted, and Fishback ran with that. She played Dre as someone constantly computing information, searching her memory for the appropriate response to social situations. When asked how she's doing, Dre mimics phrases she's heard Marissa say, trying to approximate normal human interaction without actually understanding it. It's an incredibly nuanced performance that makes Dre sympathetic even as she's doing horrific things. Fishback found the humanity in a character who could easily have been just a monster. Fact number 15. Throughout production, the Swarm team took extraordinary care of their cast, particularly Fishback, who was living in Dre's headspace for months. They had not one but two sensitivity coordinators, one in Los Angeles and one in Atlanta where they filmed. They also employed an intimacy coordinator to ensure everyone felt safe during sexual or vulnerable scenes. The sensitivity coordinators focused on the psychology of violence, the mental state required to portray such dark material, and helping actors process the emotional weight of what they were depicting. This wasn't just about avoiding offense, it was about protecting the mental health of people asked to embody trauma and violence day after day. Fishback has talked about how important it was to have that support, to have people checking in on her, making sure she could separate herself from Dre despite playing a serial killer who does terrible things. Fishback approached every scene from a place of preserving her own light. She's deeply spiritual, has a strong sense of self, and made conscious choices about how to engage with darkness without being consumed by it. Between takes, she'd immediately drop character, joke around, be herself. She didn't use method acting techniques that would require staying in Dre's disturbed mindset between scenes. She recognized that you can explore darkness as an actor while still protecting your own mental and spiritual well-being. Swarm premiered at South by Southwest in March 2023, and all 7 episodes dropped on Amazon Prime Video on March 17th. The critical response was overwhelmingly positive, with particular praise for Dominique Fishback's performance. She earned an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Limited or Anthology Series, and the show received nominations for Outstanding Writing as well. What made Swarm special was its refusal to play it safe. At a time when most streaming platforms are chasing broad appeal and trying not to offend anyone, Swarm leaned into discomfort. It asked uncomfortable questions about fandom, about parasocial relationships, about the ways social media has warped how we relate to celebrities and each other. It didn't provide easy answers or moral clarity. Instead, it held up a funhouse mirror to our collective online behavior and said, "This is what it looks like when taken to its extreme." The show sparked intense debate online, which was probably inevitable given its subject matter. Some people felt it was unfairly painting Beyoncé fans as violent or unhinged. Others argued that it was actually quite sympathetic to Dre, humanizing someone who should be portrayed as a monster. Some found it too disturbing, too graphic, too much. Others praised its willingness to go there, to not soften the edges or make the violence palatable. Donald Glover and Janine Nabers created Swarm as a direct response to a tweet Glover had seen asking why Black women in films and TV were always lawyers or best friends. Why couldn't a Black woman be a serial killer? Why couldn't she be complex, disturbing, fascinating in the way white male anti-heroes have been allowed to be for decades? Swarm answered that question by centering a Black woman character who is absolutely a villain, but also undeniably compelling and, in strange moments, even sympathetic. The show also succeeded in its goal of being what Nabers called a cinephile's dream, something that rewards careful viewing, that references film history, that takes risks with form and structure. It proved that streaming audiences are ready for weird, challenging content if you make it well and commit to the vision. It showed that horror can be intelligent social commentary without sacrificing scares or suspense. Fishback's performance became the centerpiece that held everything together. She made Dre simultaneously alien and relatable, monstrous and pathetic, scary and sad. Critics praised her ability to make you care about a character doing unforgivable things. She approached the role with such thoughtfulness, such intention, such respect for the difficulty of what she was being asked to do. And she pulled it off brilliantly, creating one of the most memorable characters in recent television. The casting of Malia Obama as a writer became its own story, with people debating whether it was appropriate or nepotistic or brave. But the final episodes proved that she contributed meaningfully to the show's success. Her episode doesn't feel different or weaker. It fits seamlessly into the show's dark tapestry. It's a reminder that talent and privilege aren't mutually exclusive, and that sometimes having opportunities opens doors, but you still have to prove you belong in the room. Swarm didn't get a second season, and honestly, that's probably for the best. Some stories are meant to exist as complete contained experiences. The show told its story, made its point, left its mark. Trying to continue Dre's journey or find new variations on the same theme would likely have diluted the impact. 7 episodes was exactly the right length, long enough to fully explore the psychological terrain, but short enough to maintain intensity without exhaustion. These 15 facts only scratch the surface of what makes Swarm fascinating as both art and cultural phenomenon. Every aspect of the production, from the decision to shoot on film, to the meta-marketing campaigns, to the care taken with cast well-being, reflects a thoughtfulness that's rare in streaming content. This wasn't a show cranked out to meet a content quota. It was a deliberate artistic statement about where we are as a culture, how we consume celebrity, and what happens when devotion becomes pathology. Swarm stands as proof that Black creators can and should tell stories outside the narrow boxes typically imposed on them. It proved that audiences are ready for Black women anti-heroes, for narratives that don't fit neatly into comfortable categories, for art that challenges rather than soothes. And it demonstrated that Donald Glover's vision extends beyond his own performance, that he can create compelling work even when he's not the one in front of the camera. Whether you found Swarm brilliant or disturbing or both, it's undeniably a show that sparked conversation, pushed boundaries, and refused to look away from uncomfortable truths about how we live online. It's the kind of television that stays with you, that makes you think differently about your own relationship to fandom and celebrity. And in an era of disposable content designed to be watched and forgotten, that's an achievement worth celebrating. That buzz you feel after watching, that's exactly what they intended. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Swarm series, don't forget to like this video, share it with other fans, and subscribe to our channel for more wild facts about your favorite urban horror films and series. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another upload. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.